Hi guys, this is Francis Navarro, and tonight we'll be learning about classical conditioning and apparent conditioning. So I have a little cheat sheet that I'll be using and I'll be reading it if you guys don't mind, just so that my words don't get jumbled. For classical conditioning, this is a type of learning or a learning process that occurs through association between an environmental stimulus and naturally occurring reflexes. It involves placing a neutral signal before a naturally occurring reflex. The unconditioned response is the unlearned response that occurs naturally in response to the unconditioned stimulus. The conditioned response is the learned response to the previously neutral stimulus. For example, the unconditioned response would be feeling hungry when we get a view or smell of food. But if at very sight of food, if a whistle is blown, then after a few instances, we would be feeling hungry at the sound of the whistle. And this is called conditioned response. Apparent conditioning, sometimes referred to as instrumental conditioning, is a method of learning that occurs through reward and punishment for behavior through apparent conditioning. An association is made between a behavior and a consequence. For that behavior, for example, when a lab rat presses a blue button, then food comes out. And then when he presses the red button, then he gets mildly shocked. So over a period of time, the rat learns that not to press the red button because he's gonna get shocked, and presses the blue button for the food. Um, Classical and apparent conditioning are two important concepts central to behavioral psychology. While both result in learning, the processes are quite different. Classical conditioning involves placing a neutral signal before a reflex and focuses on involuntary automatic behaviors. Operant conditioning involves applying reinforcement or punishment after a behavior, focusing on strengthening or weakening voluntary behaviors. Let's say, as an example, if a kid in school says foul language, then a teacher can correct him by making him realize that how using such language could sound insulting or rude to others. He can also try to, and on the other hand, he can also be motivated or motivate him by awarding him with something that he likes each time that he doesn't use a foul language. So, over a given period of time, he knows that when he does something positive, then he'll get rewarded. And then when he does the opposite, then there's punishment. And that should be something that's very consistent for that person to learn. The reward and the punishment, or the consequence for their actions. I do the same thing with my kids. Um, my 11-year-old, for example, likes to play Roblox, especially on Fridays or the weekends. It's timed. He only gets a few hours, but he knows that there's certain rules also, that he can't just like go to school and play Roblox or video games. Um, First of all, he has to be very respectful at home, and he has to keep a certain grade level. And if it's not up to par, then we know that he's getting so distracted with the game that we take that away from him. We tell him that there's rules, that you have to maintain a certain grade, and we know that he's very strong at that subject. So he's distracted, and that's his only distraction because he loves playing Roblox. So we take that away from him. because that's a consequence or the punishment for, not really a punishment, but a lesson that he learns for not learning how to balance both. But if he does good and it's consistent, then he gets to play, um, and a little bit more, and we give him a little bit more time and reward him. Like, say for example, an A minus becomes an A, then in a subject, then we let him play a little bit more, because he knows that that's his reward for for working hard and for following rules. Same goes with the opposite. If his grades kind of slack off, or if he's very disrespectful, or if he gets very moody, or he, they have this thing where they rage, because of when they get frustrated, when they have when they don't get whatever, like they lose on their games, then then he doesn't get to play for that day or for that weekend. So he knows not to do that, and consistently we do that, so he knows the consequence and the reward for the things that he does. So those are the examples and the topic for tonight, and I hope that my video was clear. I tried to actually use our recording system, but for some reason it doesn't want to upload, so I'll transfer this to YouTube and just send the link. But thank you and have a good evening.